This is 1995. 30 years ago, the Berlin Wall came down. I don't really remember that. I was 6 years old, but I do remember growing up in reunited Germany in the 1990s. We were so optimistic. We were all free. I do remember how the Soviet Union fell apart and democracy spread everywhere and McDonald's spread everywhere. I do remember that Nelson Mandela became president of South Africa after more than 20 years in prison. I do remember American astronauts going to the Russian space station called Mir, peace. I do remember all borders in Europe being opened, even the ones where 5 years before people had been shot and bled to death. I do remember the Prime Minister of Israel and the President of the Palestinians shaking hands, sharing the Nobel Peace Prize. It was, in a good sense, the end of history. That was a worldwide bestseller then. Liberal democracy, the free market, and human rights had won! Of course, there were some issues still. There was unemployment, but we would deal with that. Some countries were ruled by the very last dictators, but we would deal with them. And we knew we had to be a bit careful with the climate and the fossil fuels, but we would deal with that. We were free now. Sure, we would deal with that. When I look for one image that shows us in the 90s, it was when Christo and Jean-Claude wrapped the Reichstag, the German parliament building, for 2 weeks in the summer of 1995. They had fought for this installation to happen for more than 20 years, and finally, the building's landlord, the German parliament, after a live televised fierce debate and with a narrow majority, gave permission, and it happened. They wrapped the Reichstag. It was a miracle. For 2 weeks, the sun was shining every day, and 5 million people came. And it was the most relaxed summer, fun, dance, music, barbecue, camping, play, party, picnic my goddamn country had ever seen. The heavy building with the heavy history was wrapped, and suddenly there was just light and people smiling for 2 weeks. I remember a few months later that Prime Minister of Israel was shot and bled to death. I remember Russia did not really want to join NATO. I remember there was a genocide in Rwanda, but we had not noticed. I remember we had to bomb Somalia and Serbia to convince them of democracy and for human rights, for freedom, and for McDonald's. I remember that at some point the car commercials changed, no longer advertising for smaller cars with better gas mileage, environmentally friendly, no, big ones, strong ones, cars for winners, cars for free people. I remember the Twin Towers coming down and how we all felt it. History had started again. It had never ended. It had just been wrapped for one summer.